Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and you're watching my review for Hunter x Hunter episodes 122 and 123. Now, this first episode, 122. Alright, I'm gonna go a little out of order here because I wanna save all the Netero Miram stuff for the end. So I want to just get like the Pito, Poof, Yuppie stuff out the way first. So I'm just gonna talk about that stuff first. Essentially what happens, Pito explains to both Gon and Poof what happened as far like all the things that she knows about, that is, and she included details of things that Gon didn't know as well, and because she wanted to keep him interested in what she was saying, that way she wasn't like, that way he, I should say, wasn't focused on Poof, and he didn't notice details that he shouldn't have noticed, like that she was slowly like that she was feeding him little clues and stuff. So she tried to keep him interested with that, and she did. When he heard the stuff about Miram and Komugi and all that, his eyes wavered a little bit because he realized like because you know how he reacted to the whole like of the situation with Pito trying to save Komugi. Like, he didn't give a crap. He's like they probably want to like screw around with her like they did with Kite, you know. So now he knows the truth. He's like his eyes wavered because he realized that he was wrong, completely wrong actually. He wasn't even close to being right. But one of the things that Pito was able to get to Poof is that Miram went south. So Poof actually ends up sending 6/7 of his body south. Not all at once though, because it would be noticeable if all of a sudden like he sends 6/7 of his body out. Remaining 1/7 is what he needs in order to maintain his body size, so that Gon doesn't notice anything. So yeah, that's why it's 6/7. It's not like some random number that. Well, I mean, it is a random number that Togashi came up with, but you get the point. He sends those 6/7 out, and he eventually ends up running into Yuppie. All right, and he explains the situation to him, and by the time he finishes, the rest of his 6/7 have shown up. So now he's like normal, not normal size, probably. Well, maybe normal size. Yeah, he has to be normal size. Because if you need 1/6 of the body to be normal size, and yes, or 1/7, and you have 6/7, he has to be normal size. So yeah, he's back to normal size now. All the sevenths show up. The six, forget. You know what I mean, right? You know what I mean. He's normal size now. All the parts that he sent out are there now, right? And he actually believes that the change that Pito has gone through will end up having a negative effect on the king. He don't think that it'll benefit him. So now he's trying to test Yuppie and see that Yuppie's change, to see if Yuppie's change benefits the king or not, which it does. I mean, he's still all about the king, you know. So cool. Which we know this because we saw Yuppie, like every time he got a new power, the first thing to come into his mind was, you know, how can I use this to help the king? So we know it, but now Poof knows it. Then they fly away. The place where Yuppie was had a bunch of different cocoons and things. And when Poof was flying away, you could see the particles floating down. So I don't know. Those might just be like normal particles that come off whenever he flies, but I don't know. I thought maybe it's some little detail that Togashi added in when like those cocoons will hatch at some point and something like that because of the particles, whatever. I don't know. It's probably nothing. It's probably just the normal particles that come from his wings whenever they flap and he flies, but. Figured I'd mention it just in case to, you know, that 1% chance that it actually is something, right? Now after this, for the rest of the episode, I'm just going to be, for the rest of the review, for this episode at least, what I'm going to talk about is the Netero and Miram stuff, alright? This stuff was awesome, alright? It was just awesome. It starts off with, well, they get off the dragon disappears. They don't get off of it. It disappears. It took them to this place where weapons for war are tested. That way they can fight and not worry about the surroundings and people getting hurt, things getting destroyed, stuff like that. And once they land, Miram asks Netero why he fights. All right, and Netero's like, huh? Like it was kind of funny. Like usually you see like these dumb young shonen leads doing that stuff, but it's really interesting to see like an older man doing the same thing. It was kind of funny. Um, but Miram goes on to say that the reason why he was curious as to why Netero's fighting is because he knows that Netero has no chance of beating him, which Netero doesn't agree with, and I can understand why because of that concept. Well, it's not really a concept, but it's like more like an idea, I guess, that um, we learned about a while back, where in a fight between Nen users, it's never a given who's going to win. You might have one person who's stronger than the other, but because Nen abilities are so unique, if you don't know the other person's abilities, you could still lose. Like if they're able to catch you off, it's easy to catch someone off guard because the you don't know what needs to be done for that Nen ability to activate. You don't know what the actual Nen ability is. You don't know what kind of effect it can have on you. It could be something as simple as um, no, I don't know. I probably should have thought of an example beforehand, but it could be an example of something that seems simple at first, but is actually very complicated, or the reverse. It could be something that sounds really complicated, but it's actually really simple. It could be anything really. Nan abilities are so unique that you have people like the what were they called, the Ortho siblings, or whoever those guys with the brothers, sisters, siblings who had the dartboard and they almost killed Kahlua. When it comes to a fight in Nen, if you doesn't matter how weak you are physically, if you have a Nen ability and you're able to activate it, then you can win. Right? So in a fight between these two, it doesn't matter if Miram's stronger than Netero because they don't know each other's abilities. Neto's ability might look simple, where it's just like, oh, karate chop, claps like that, but it might be something else. Like maybe with every hand that he uses, um, he he has some other technique that gets stronger. It gets stronger with each hand he uses, and then as the last resort, he can use that technique to unleash all the power that he's built up so far by doing those different hand techniques or something like that. That's just something random I came up with, but you get the point. In a battle of Nen, it doesn't matter who's stronger. Literally anybody can win. All right, so I don't really agree. So that's a little too much explanation for why I think uh, Miram shouldn't just assume that Netero is going to lose, but whatever. Um, anyway, Miram goes on to say after after the whole like Netero you can't beat me thing, that he deems Netero as someone like Komugi, as a human who is worthy of living, a human who is worthy of being kept alive, I should say, kept alive. All right. And Netero, he declines that offer obviously because he says, well, I'm glad you want to swear me, but what about everyone else? I can't just abandon the rest of my race. And Miram goes on to try and essentially he tries to talk no jutsu Miram, but it doesn't really come off that way. That's essentially what he's trying to do, I guess. Like he's trying to convince Netero to drop what he's doing and come over to his side pretty much and say, you want this, I want this, you should go with me instead of doing what you're doing. You should side with me. He's trying to pull Netero over to his side. And the way he goes about doing this is saying that he is pretty much he's disgusted by humans and the way that they can live their lives. They can make things he finds it despicable that they can make things so unequal. He finds it off. He just doesn't like the fact that you can have a land that's separated by something as simple as a border. But on one half of the border, you have people who are poor and are barely making it from day to day. And on the other half of the border, you have someone like what's his face, who's the leader of NGL, or not NGL. Where are they at right now? East Gordo or something like that. That dude that's the leader there is like pretty much brain dead now. Someone like him who's like born into money and he doesn't need to do anything, but he's like rich and living the high life, even though he doesn't deserve it because he hasn't done anything to deserve it. He finds it disgusting that things could be so unequal. So what he wants to do is create a world that is more equal, create a world that's fair, which was surprising to me because you remember how we were used to think, he just wanted to kill humans. He considered them livestock. I think those were the words he said in this episode. He used to consider them as livestock, right? And he wanted to kill them or make them his subordinates, like things like that. But now he's saying instead of using his power to just eradicate humans and control them, he's going to use his power to maintain order. He's pretty much saying that he's going to his plan is pretty much like Pain's from Naruto, right? Nagato's plan. He wants to teach people pain essentially, and then rule them through fear pretty much, and get them to stop doing stupid crap, and then create world peace that way. That's essentially that's essentially what his plan is. It's Pain's plan. So I guess I can't really say it's Pain's plan. I don't know which came first, Pain's invasion or this part of the Chimera Ant arc, because some of the people I know online have been telling me that the anime is probably going to end in the summer. Which, right now it's the spring season's about to start, and the summer season's right after that. So we've only got like 12 episodes until the summer starts. If they say it's going to end in the summer, it means we've got what, max 25, 26 episodes left, something around that. So you would think, all right, so that's maybe 50, 75 chapters in the manga, somewhere in between there. Plus you have the arc that comes after this, which I won't mention the name of the arc because it's kind of a spoiler. I don't read the manga, but because I know the name of that arc, I already know, so I'm already spoiled on some of the stuff that happens next. But add on that, I don't think it's definitely not as long of an arc as this is. I think it's like a 30 chapter arc or something like that. So that's like 80 to 100 chapters, which normally, for any normal manga, that'd be 2 years, and Pain's Invasion was probably, I remember the anime was doing that in like 2010, 2011, something like that. So in the manga, it probably came out in 2009, 2010. And it takes 2 years to do 100 chapters. So if it weren't for the hiatuses, I'd be able to instantly tell you, oh, well, in the manga, in the Hunter x Hunter manga, this stuff came out 2 years ago. But I can't say that because of all the hiatuses, so I really don't know when it came out. So I can't tell what came first, this or Pain's Invasion. But it doesn't really matter that much. I don't even know why I spent that much time talking about it. Anyway, that's his plan, pretty much. Nagato's plan, to teach people pain and stuff like that. That's what he's pretty much trying to do. And he says that the reason why his plan changed to that is because Komugi taught him what true power is meant to be used for. All right. So pretty much what he did is he combined the two ideologies that he had. All right. That's what he did. All right. He still thinks that some humans just don't deserve to live, and he's still going to take care of them, and take them out. All right. People like the dude who's the leader of East Gordo or whatever the place is called. Right. But now he acknowledges the fact that there are actually humans who deserve to live, and you don't necessarily need to be strong or weak to be someone who deserves to live. So he decides that he pretty much wants to find out who is deserving of living or not, and then use his power to protect them and create a world that's fair for them while getting rid of the people who don't deserve it. And he decides that he's not going to fight Netero because he just wants to sit down and talk with Netero and just discuss this and get him on his side, because he thinks that he doesn't want to fight Netero because he thinks he's deserving of living, And if he fights, and if Netero does fight him, he's going to die. And he doesn't want that, So yeah. And what was I going to say? There was one other thing I wanted to say about that. Oh yeah. It's how in shonen usually what happens is that, with the exception of like a select few shonen, what usually happens is that people they'll start by talking, but then they'll say, you know what, you're not listening. I have to settle this with violence. I have to settle this with a fight. Come on, let's go. Let's do this, and then they fight. Then that's how they settle things. But in Hunter x Hunter, it's different. Instead, Miriam is actually saying, no, I'm not going to settle this. I don't want to settle this with fighting. I want to settle this with words. And you don't see many manga that do that. Maybe like Hunter x Hunter and Naruto. Those are like off the top of my head. Those are the few where they actually try to settle things throughout without violence, and they actually try to settle things with words. Though I guess that in Naruto they do use violence and they do fight, but in the end they try to settle things with words. Naruto does at least. Naruto, Kakashi, Jiraiya, Minato, Hashirama. Pretty much anyone whose goal is to eliminate the false award. Anyone else, they'll just fight you. But most other people try to use words. So I thought it was interesting how you don't really see many manga where the characters say, "Why should we fight? Let's just settle this with words. It's not necessary to do that." So I thought that was interesting that Miriam said he wanted to settle things through words and not through fighting. But speaking of words, Netudo, this was another amazing part of the episode. Netudo was just he's listening to all the stuff that Miriam is saying, and he's realizing that this guy Miriam, he's starting to waver between being a chimera ant and being a human. Okay? And he says that that's not good because the two sides are incompatible. You can't be both. You can't be both a chimera and a human because they're contradictory. It's like with the stuff with Yuppie about what he was doing a few episodes ago and how he was doing two contradictory things. Well, here Miriam's trying to do two contradictory things. He's trying to be two contradictory things, and it just can't happen. It just doesn't work. All right, and Netudo is saying that one of those two sides, either his chimera ant side or his human side, is going to end up becoming the dominant side of Miriam. However, he can't figure out which one it will be. He can't figure out how Miriam is going to turn out, right? And this is actually some really deep stuff here. It's incredible. Because you look at what types of creatures like the chimera ants are, they're actually very similar to humans, but at the same time they're much bigger threats because of their fighting capabilities. The chimera ants are similar in the sense that we as humans, we just go and we're the dominant species. We'll go and look at other animals and we'll just make food out of them. We will eat other creatures because we can. We're above them. We'll get our meats, We don't just eat salad and plants and crap, We'll eat other creatures because we can and we'll tell ourselves it's good, And the chimera ants view us that way. But at the same time, they're not as... They don't think the way we do. They go above and beyond, well, I guess because we as humans, we do things like hunt for fun, but chimera ants, they take hunting to a new level. They're similar to humans, but at the same time, they're also different. And letting Miriam go, if he does end up turning into that chimera ant side, it's not going to be good, because you think about what the chimera ants are doing even right now without Miriam being full-on chimera ant. You had the queen, she had a bunch of different children. Now all those children have gone off on their own to become kings and queens and create their own kingdoms and empires and start their own clans, I guess you could call them. Alright? And then their kids are going to do the same thing and spread, and their kids are going to do the same thing and spread, and their kids are going to do the same thing and spread. And Miriam, if he goes full chimera, he's going to go hardcore when it comes to killing humans and crap. Plus, he's going to probably find a queen at some point. Then they're going to start their kingdom, and these are going to continue with there as well. And the food that chimera ants like the most are humans, because they're the most complicated ones out there, other than them, So it's the humans that allow you to have the capabilities of speech and telepathy and stuff like that. And then the Nen users, ooh, Jesus Christ. So letting these chimera ants loose is a bad thing. And if the strongest one of them all goes full on Chimera Ant, that is not going to end well at all. These guys can literally cause the extinction of the human race. Alright? But if he goes human, then that's not going to be nearly as bad. Because he's going to be fighting for humans who deserve to live. And at the same time, you could think, like, well, who is he to decide who deserves to live? I mean, obviously, there's some people who you can see, who you could say deserve to die, like people who get the death penalty and stuff. You can make that argument, though some people would argue that the death penalty isn't good. I know some of the arguments you'll hear that, people say you killed so and so, so we'll kill you. And they'll say, well, who are we to say we're just as bad as they are? Some people make that argument, but there are people who also argue that the death penalty is a good thing. So obviously, we say to ourselves sometimes that some people are deserving to live and some people aren't deserving to live. But Miram takes it to another level again. He's not just saying you committed this crime, so you don't deserve to live. He's saying you just don't contribute to society, so you don't deserve to live. Right? And that's taking it to a whole new level, saying you don't contribute to society, so you're not worth living. You don't do anything. You're lazy. You're born into money, but you don't help other people. Like you don't do anything, so you don't deserve to live. Like that's taking it to a whole new level. So you can argue that that part of his human side is not good, but it's still much better than his Chimera Ant side, that's for sure. And Netsudo, he's thinking all of this, and he's saying to himself that if he doesn't hurry and fight and beat Miram, if he does in fact sit down with Miram and listen to him, he might legitimately get talking to Jutsu. He might legitimately get swayed to Miram's side, and he knows that he has to act before that happens. So he does just that. He acts. He creates the 100 type Guan Yin Bodhisattva. But yeah, something like that. Something like that. All right. I don't know the exact way to pronounce it, but yeah, he creates that. Then he does first hand big karate chop on top of Miram, but Miram just gets up and he doesn't do anything about it. He just sits back down and says, are you happy now? You got me, all right? That's impressive, but I still don't want to fight you. I just want to talk. So Netsudo says, oh, is that right? All right, then. Third hand. Then, boom, he just claps him like that. And again, Miram isn't hurt by it. As a matter of fact, he said it was like, no, it was the narrator, I think. He said to Miram it was like a child throwing a fit, throwing a tantrum. And it just didn't hurt him at all. He pushed the hands apart, got out, sat back down again, and says, hey, I'm only going to be influenced by words here. All right? And it surprised me. I'm impressed. And then again, I was impressed by how Netsudo actually got in a fight, because he said, oh, you'll only be influenced by words. Well, how are these words for you? All right? I know your name. Would you like to know it? He's like, and then that catches Miram's attention. He's like, what? You know my name? How would you know my name? And he's like, well, some of my subordinates were actually at your mother's bedside as she died, and she muttered your name before she passed, so I know it. However, I'll only tell you what your name is if you force me to admit defeat. And Miram says, force you to admit defeat without killing you. Okay, all right, challenge accepted. And then he starts to power up, and then Netsudo powers up and he jumps in the air. Then that's when they start to fight. I thought this episode was awesome because of how deep it was, all the different concepts that they talked about. Plus, there were just little things where, you think about it, there actually wasn't that much story progression in the chapter, because there was, Poof met up with Yuppie, and Netsudo talked with Miram. That's really all that happened in this episode. But it was still amazing. All these little things. Like that zoomed in panel of Netsudo smiling and zooming in his mustache. He just starts stroking it and stuff. When he figures out the way to get Miram in the fight, little things like that. It was just awesome. So I'll give this episode a 10 out of 10. Now, as for episode 123, this part of the review should be much quicker because there really isn't that much to talk about. it focuses pretty much entirely on Icalgo and Welfin, right? And we, the way they started this episode off, it just made Icalgo look lame. Like back when he was crying before I could actually understand, but the way they transitioned back to it, it just made it look lame. Like, oh, and while all of that was going on with Miram and Netero, Icalgo was still sobbing, and I'm like, wow, you could have like described it a little better. Like now you're just making him look like a fool. Like you're making him look like a loser now. But whatever. We actually see Bezef, Hina, and that other random Chimera ant drive by Flutter's corpse in the other vehicle. Finn opened up the shutters for them, and then he can hear Icalgo crying, so he goes in there thinking, "Oh, this guy's going to be an easy target," and he's going to use his missiles. But Icalgo shoots at him before he can even ask a question, and since he couldn't ask the questions, his missiles end up doing nothing. Right, so that was funny. Uh, and then he managed to put black centipedes in Icalco's head though, and they end up causing him pain if he resists in any way, shape, or form. If he resists Welfin, but Icalco says, "Hey, you know, the worst case scenario is that I die from these centipedes, but I'd rather die than give you the information you're looking for, so I don't care." And he just starts shooting. He keeps shooting. I should say he keeps shooting, and his goal is to pretty much not kill Wolfman, but injure him enough where he can't get up and like leave. All right, so as long as he accomplishes that, he's fine if he dies. And at this point, Wolfman's he's starting to freak out. And you're like, dude, Wolfman, I thought you were like, what? Why are you freaking out so much? Like you're strong, aren't you? Like just like you shouldn't be getting freaked out in this situation. You were so calm before, you know. And so I'm thinking like, oh, well, he'll probably recover at some point, which he doesn't. Which and as not only do we see a change in well, not a change in Wolfman's character, it's more like his true colors being revealed, but we saw a change in Icalco's character too because he, like you know how he couldn't pull the trigger and he couldn't kill Bravada. Well, now he's saying, you know, now that I'm risking my life to do it, it's suddenly much easier to pull this trigger, you know. So we see it change a little bit there. But Wolfen, right after he was freaking out, and then he just starts to plead for his own safety and say, you know, no, stop shooting me, stop it, stop hurting me, you know, I won't leave from this place, you know, and we hear some of his thoughts. It turns out that all the calm times before that, all the times of him plotting, like, oh, I'm gonna become the real king behind the scenes and all this stuff. It's like pretty much a facade. The guy's actually pretty weak, right? And he was saying to himself like, I knew it was gonna happen sooner or later when I found someone who was actually strong and I couldn't beat. Like I'm like, dude, I thought, dude, I judged you wrong, man. Like it was a surprise that Wolfen was actually this type of character, you know. But hey, and then he ends up like in order to try and avoid, Icalco wanted him to undo the black centipedes, like get rid of them, but Wolfen can't get rid of them once they're there because he didn't think that far with his ability because he didn't care enough about what happened to his enemy after that because he created them to kill his enemy. So he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't want to tell Icalco that there's no way to undo the black centipedes. So he fakes losing consciousness. All right. And literally no one fell for this. Not you, not me, and certainly not Icalco. All right. So he's just like looking at this guy like, "You serious?" He pulls out another bullet. Boom. Points the gun out at Welfare. He's like, "Okay, I'm sorry. All right, and he tells him the truth this time, and how he can't undo the black centipedes, and how it's because his abilities reflect his personality and stuff like that, and because Icalco suddenly stops feeling pain, the black centipede, so he's able to take that absence of pain and figure out that, oh well, the reason it stopped hurting was because Wolfen's finally telling me the truth, and so he takes that along with the piece of information that Wolfen just gave him about how his Nen ability was based off his personality, and he asks him if he has any memories from when he was human. And we learn that he was one of those guys from NGL who was like, he was who served under Gyro in the underground, and he got killed by what's his face, the dudes that got dominated by Killua and Kite. Um, and he had a little brother. The little brother looked like Gyro. He started talking about how he wanted to see him again, though I couldn't tell if he was talking about Gyro or his little brother, but he wanted to see one of them again. Then he like starts getting emotional after when he was like saying that stuff, and then the black centipedes disappear. Okay, I mean, didn't really care about this, or I didn't really care about anything in this episode pretty much, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, I just didn't really care. Like, it felt like this whole episode felt it didn't feel like filler, but it felt like something that wasn't necessary. It's like back when we had those 2 episodes, or I think it was 2 episodes, where the Phantom Troop fought against what's-her-face, the female Chimera Ant. She's like the only female Chimera Ant other than Hina. The one with like the scorpion tail or whatever. You know, they fought against her. It felt like those episodes. You know, like it wasn't really filler. Well, I mean, all those episodes were pretty much filler, actually, now that I think about it. They pretty much were filler. There was no reason to do those episodes. It didn't serve any purpose other than to show Killua's sibling. I say sibling because I still can't tell if it's a boy or a girl. I'll go with boy. But yeah, just to show him and his abilities and that how he was doing the Phantom Troop and stuff like that. But like, it didn't feel as filler-like as that, but this episode still felt like it was unnecessary. You know, I mean, at the end, we end up getting information from Welfin about where to find Palm. We learned that she was put in a cocoon by the real guard. And at the end of the episode, we see that cocoon. We see her breaking out of the cocoon. We see her. She has scales on her arms and stuff. She has this huge crystal-like gem thing on her forehead. You know, we see her, and that's, I mean, at the end of the day, that information is something Icalgo needed to find out. And Welfin was a character that, something needed to happen to him at some, like, he was poking in his nose and everything, so something needed to happen with his storyline. But it felt like the way it went was just not, I just don't care. Like, it just didn't seem, it didn't seem relevant. All that stuff about his brother and, you know, all that, it's not really relevant at all. Like, maybe it will become relevant later on, I don't know, but for now it doesn't seem relevant at all. So I didn't really care about this episode at all, except for those last few moments where we saw Palm. I'm sure I'll care about the next episode more, because in the preview we see Palm, and she's fighting against Killua. So, I mean, she's essentially become a Chimera Ant now. Well, no, not really. She's been altered in some way, but she wasn't, like, legit devoured. Well, she's been altered. How about I just say that? She's been altered. It's been so long, I forgot what exactly the plan was for all those people that they captured and put in cocoons and stuff like that. I remember they had, like, the trees in the yard, or in the court for the palace with, like, with different cocoons and stuff, but I forgot what all that stuff was for. Now, it's been so long. Were those the people that Poof hit with his scales and, like, hypnotized them? I don't even remember what the point was. It's been so long. So someone can remind me in the comment section. But yeah, she's obviously different now. She's fighting Killua, and you see she's, like I mentioned before, the scales in her arms plus the big gem crystal thing on her forehead. And that outfit she had on looked like she came straight out of Witchcraft Works. We saw one of the mini poofs on her shoulder too, I think. So that outfit was due to her power, probably something along those lines, because she wasn't wearing that outfit when she came out of the cocoon. But whatever, we'll get more answers next week with that episode. But that's it for this double review for Hunter x Hunter. The first episode gets a 10 out of 10. I'll give this episode a 6 out of 10 because it was just okay in my mind. I just didn't really care that much, and nothing that happened here seemed relevant at all except for the Palm stuff at the end. So yeah, I'll give this episode a 6 out of 10 and the previous one a 10 out of 10. And that's it. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.